from Lagos, the nation's commercial capital. This is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Ijoma Onyato.
National Assembly panders to public opinion, rescinds decision on direct primaries, recommends indirect and direct primaries for political parties, as Senate adds the option of consensus. Federal High Court Abuja hears terrorism charges against leader of proscribed IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu, who pleads not guilty, as another court in Umuahia orders federal government to pay him 1 billion naira for infringement on his fundamental human rights. All eyes on Ekiti and Osun ahead of governorship elections. INEC wants political parties to be transparent in the conduct of their primaries. And Britain ends Plan B COVID-19 measures as work from home ends today, while mandatory wearing of face masks continues. Plus international news from our London studio.
On business news tonight, Nigeria's stock market hits 4-year high as all-share index crosses 45,000 level on investors' keen interest for local equities.
On sports news tonight, it's a 100% record at the ongoing AFCON as Super Eagles beat Guinea-Bissau to finish top of Group D with maximum points.
And from Abuja, Vice President Professor Yemi Oshibajo presides over first Federal Executive Council meeting of 2022. Minister of Information says consultation is on to ascertain the status of the controversial oil subsidy issue.
In response to the outrage that trailed the president's refusal of assent to the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2021, the National Assembly today made a U-turn and rescinded its earlier decision. President Muhammadu Buhari had hinged his rejection of the bill on the fact that the federal lawmakers made direct primaries compulsory for the nomination of candidates by political parties. However, while the Senate re-amended Clause 84, subsection 2, approving direct, indirect primaries or consensus as the procedures for nomination of candidates, the House of Representatives did not approve the consensus method of nominating candidates for elected positions. Our correspondent Linda Akigbe reports.
It's the proverbial D-Day in the National Assembly. Federal lawmakers are expected to act on the concerns raised by President Buhari in the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. Specifically, the president wants lawmakers to re-amend the clause which makes direct primaries compulsory for nominating candidates by political parties. The Senate rescinds its earlier decision on compulsory direct primaries, choosing instead to adopt direct, indirect and consensus as procedures for nominating candidates.
The Senate, in the Committee of the Whole, considered the Electoral Act No. 6, 2010 Repeal and Enactment Bill 2022 and approved as follows. Clause 84 as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Thank you.
It also approved that a political party that adopts direct primaries shall ensure that all aspirants are given equal opportunity of being voted for by members of the party. In the case of presidential primaries, all registered members of the party are to vote for aspirants of their choice at a designated center at each ward of the federation. For indirect primaries, it approved that in the case of nomination to the position of presidential candidate, a political party shall hold a special presidential convention at a designated center in the FCT or any other place within the federation agreed to by the National Executive Committee of the party. In the House of Representatives, lawmakers immediately go into a closed-door session on resumption. 30 minutes later, The chamber doors are thrown open. Legislators confer in different groups. We would later learn that lawmakers had just got wind of a Senate's decision to include the option of consensus as a procedure for nominating candidates.
A letter was written by Mr. President.
The House also follows the path of the Senate by rescinding its earlier decision on compulsory direct primaries. However, it does not adopt consensus procedure for nominating candidates.
It is my considered position that the political parties should be allowed to freely exercise the right of choice in deciding which of direct or indirect primaries to adopt in the conduct of their primary elections. So basically, our rules have tied our hands. We can't even go outside that clause to inject any other thing, even if we so desire.
Outside the chamber, lawmakers explained their decision not to override the president and why the consensus method was not considered by legislators in the House of Representatives.
Let us not be having problems with our parties, with the government and everybody. Let us put even the indirect primaries and the direct primaries and then also the consensus. So whatever happens at the end of the day, the party will not blame the National Assembly for making a law that is difficult for them.
A lot of our members who have consulted, their constituents came back and said, well, there was a need to give the latitude, to the parties so that the people will have option.
Members didn't think that the consensus was as democratic as the interment of the amendments were scheduled.
How does a party determine its consensus candidate? These are some of the things you should look at. You cannot give a vague, so a political party, the chairman of the party can decide in a room who the consensus candidate can be.
The Senate and House of Representatives will now have to form a conference committee to harmonize their positions on consensus candidates for party primaries. However, this may delay the speedy conclusion of the process. Linda Akibi, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, reactions to the National Assembly's decision from civil society groups have been swift. The groups are urging the Senate to immediately reverse the proposed provision for consensus candidates in the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. 12 of the organizations made their position known in a statement, explaining that the Senate's proposal is, in their words, antithetical to democratic principles and will result in the subversion of popular will. And staying with the issue of primaries, the Independent National Electoral Commission is reading the Riot Act to all political parties taking part in the forthcoming Osun and Ekiti governorship elections. The INEC chairman, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, says the commission will not monitor any primaries conducted outside the two states and their outcomes will not be accepted. He stated this at the first quarterly meeting for the year 2022 with civil society organizations at the INEC headquarters in Abuja. Our correspondent, Empress Simon, reports.
The 2023 general election is just 395 days away, and the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, is meeting with members of the civil society organizations for the first time in 2022 for its regular quarterly meeting. The INEC chairman, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, begins with an update on the ongoing continuous voter registration exercise, which commenced in June 2021.
As at Monday, 17th January 2022, a total of 8,260,076 eligible Nigerians commenced their registration online, completed the registration physically, applied for transfer to new locations, requested for replacement of their PVCs, and updated their voter information records.
The year 2022 is expected to be a busy year for INEC and civil society organizations, beginning with the Ekiti and Osun governorship elections.
In the cases of Ekiti and Osun governorship elections, any primaries conducted outside the two states will not be monitored by the Commission. and their outcomes will not be accepted. Meanwhile, the Commission has also decided that the suspended Ekiti East 1 state constituency by-election will be combined with the state governorship election holding on the 18th June 2022.
For members of the civil society organizations, INEC and political parties in the country must ensure inclusiveness, especially of persons living with disability.
We want to see persons with disabilities come out and vote effectively, vote unaided, and vote, ensure that they exercise their franchise as well.
2022 is a signal year for 2023. So the action is key, and that action right now is that Ekiti State election must be as credible as possible.
As INEC continues to consult with critical stakeholders on its preparations for the elections, Nigerians expect nothing short of a free, fair and credible process. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, all may not be well with the People's Democratic Party in Ekiti State, as dozens of protesters today converged on the national headquarters of the party in Abuja, protesting against the committee that conducted the state congresses on Saturday. The protest is happening after the Ekiti State 3-member ad hoc delegates submitted the report and petitions from the Congress to the National Working Committee on Monday. The protesters were led by a former Ekiti State House of Assembly member, Titilayo Owolabi.
In the whole of Ekiti State, there was no Congress on Saturday. Everybody waited till about 6 p.m. before we departed. So we were amazed when we heard that a Congress was conducted. We are demanding that the PDP National Working Committee declares null and void whatever happened on Saturday, because there was no Congress. Yes. We advise them to go and investigate independently in Ekiti State if anything like that happened. Oh, yeah. Nothing happened like Congress on Saturday. Oh, yeah. We don't know why there would be an appeal when there was no Congress. You can only appeal for a Congress that is wrongly done or badly done. I don't know how illegality can come upon legality can come upon illegality. When there was no Congress, I don't know what we are appealing. But we are here to express our mind that they should please save PDP in Nigeria. Destroying PDP in Ekiti State is laying the foundation of a failed presidential ambition or election for PDP. Yes.
Now, we're still taking reactions to the National Assembly's decision from civil society groups. Let's listen to 12 of them who made their position known in a statement.
All I said, there should be options. We must not insist that it has to be direct. It should be consensus and indirect.
So if they do that, would you sign it?
Yes, I will.
President Muhammadu Buhari announcing his readiness to sign the Electoral Act Amendment Bill if the section that makes direct primaries as a mode of selecting candidates by political parties is expunged. One of the first legislative activities of the National Assembly for the new year is the reamendment of the controversial section. This is one of the demands of civil society groups as they seek urgent action on the bill ahead of off-season elections in the Federal Capital Territory, Ekiti, and Osun states.
When you amend the law, what is the intendment of that amendment? To cure certain challenges that law faces. So we have agreed that there are sunshine issues that are contained in that bill. Okay? But to continue to play with this also signifies what we have continued to say, that is a collective elite conspiracy.
Most times when we talk about voter apathy, the turnout is very low. Citizens are in turnout because of fear of violence, because they are afraid that their votes will not count, or just the stress of even voting, and democracy has not delivered development to the people. One thing we rarely talk about is that the choices on the ballot paper itself, the choices on the ballot does not actually inspire people to turn up to vote during the elections.
During the amendment of Clause 84, which deals with the nomination of candidates, both chambers agreed that political parties can adopt direct or indirect options. However, the Senate included consensus method of nominating candidates, an action that members of civil societies are kicking against.
We reject in totality that particular provision because consensus as a procedure for nomination of candidates is antithetical to democratic ethos, and it will amount to a subversion of popular will. Demand of civil society and Nigerians is that the National Assembly adopts the provision of the House.
Civil society groups are still hoping that the amendment process can be concluded on or before the January 21st.
In part two, after the break, leader of proscribed IPOB Nnamdi Kanu pleads not guilty to fresh charges as another court in Umuahia orders federal government to pay him 1 billion naira for infringement on his fundamental human rights. That's in a moment. Do join us again. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. National Assembly rescinds decision on direct primaries, recommends indirect and direct primaries for political parties. Senate adds the option of consensus. Leader of proscribed IPOB Nnamdi Kanu pleads not guilty to charges of terrorism as another court in Umuahia orders federal government to pay him 1 billion naira over infringement of his fundamental human rights. Politics comes alive in Ekiti and Osun ahead of the governorship elections. INEC wants political parties to be transparent in the conduct of their primaries. And Britain ends Plan B COVID-19 measures as work from home ends today, while mandatory wearing of face masks continues. To the judiciary, where the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Mr. Nnamdi Kanu, has pleaded not guilty to the fresh amended 15 counts on treasonable felony brought against him by the federal government. Mr. Kanu, who was brought into the courtroom around 10:15 a.m. today, said he was innocent of all the allegations leveled against him, even as he complained from the dock that some counts in the amended charge were similar.
The street leading to the Federal High Court, Abuja, is deserted. Security operatives man different checkpoints ahead of the rearrangement of the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Mr. Nnamdi Kanu, who is being arraigned on a fresh 15 amended count charge bordering on treasonable felony. Inside the court premises, those accredited trickle in and are scrutinized before gaining access into the courtroom. At about 10:15 a.m., Mr. Nnamdi Kanu walks into the courtroom and is received by his team of lawyers and family members. At the resumed hearing, Mr. Kanu pleads not guilty to the fresh amended 15-count charge when it was read to him. Shortly after the plea was taken, counsel to the federal government, Mr. Labaran Magaji, informs the court that he is prepared to proceed with a formal trial of the defendant. He informs the court that 2 of his witnesses are in court to testify in the case, while some exhibits to be tendered to establish terrorism charges against Mr. Kanu were brought to the court. Mr. Labaran cites Section 396 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015, which stipulates that trial should begin after arraignment, while objection on any issue can be taken at any time, along with the substantive matters. However, Mr. Kanu's lead counsel, Michael Zekome, objects to the commencement of trial, adding that his client has filed 2 motions on notice, one questioning the validity of the charges and the other seeking bail. Chief Zekome says the 2 motions are so fundamental because one of them is challenging the competence of the entire charges and must be first resolved. In a brief ruling, Justice Nyako notes that since Mr. Kanu's first application is challenging the propriety of his trial, as well as the competence of the charge against him, the court ought to hear it first.
What I want to tell Nigerians is that we are fully ready. And one thing that is very interesting that Nigerians should be looking out for is the fact that one of the counts suggesting that the defendant, Nnamdi Kanu, is a member of IPOB, and he vehemently denied being a member of IPOB. That is very curious, and we urge Nigerians to see us through how we are going to prove all those charges against the defendants in no time to come.
What the prosecution tried to do was to insist that because today was set down for hearing, that the trial must go on, notwithstanding the pendency of this application, which we had filed, and not also withstanding the pendency of a second application, a 26-page motion for bail. And of course, our application is fundamental, it's intrinsic to this trial.
The court subsequently adjourns till February 16 to hear the defense's pending application.
Meanwhile, an Abia State High Court sitting in Umuahia has asked the federal government to pay the sum of 1 billion naira as damages to Mr. Kanu. Justice Benson Anya in Umuahia also held that the Nigerian government violated the fundamental human rights of the detained IPOB leader when the military invaded his home in Abia State in September 2017. Mr. Kanu, through his lawyer, had approached the court seeking 5 billion naira as damages against the federal government over the military invasion of his father's house on September the 10th, 2017. The court described the invasion as brazen and asked the government to issue a public apology in 3 national dailies to Mr. Kanu, as the invasion was a violation of his right to life, dignity of his human person, his personal liberty, and his privacy. Justice Anya, however, refused to nullify the ongoing trial of Mr. Kanu for alleged terrorism, saying he lacked jurisdiction on the matter. We cross over to Abuja now, and here's Linda Akigbe. Linda?
Hello, Ijoma. From the judiciary, we go to governance issues. Against the backdrop of the comment by the Senate President that President Buhari never directed petroleum subsidy removal, the Minister of Information and Culture, Mr. Lai Mohammed, has said that he will consult with relevant departments and ministries to gain clarity on the matter. The minister stated this while responding to questions from State House correspondents after the Federal Executive Council meeting, asking for some time to examine the issues. Meanwhile, the Council has approved contract awards for various projects in the Federal Capital Territory, flood control in the 6 geopolitical zones, as well as for the Ministry of Transportation, amounting to about 76.78 billion naira.
Removal of fuel subsidy, I think you will give me time to really, give me time to consult with the relevant departments and ministries, and then I'll get back to you.
In Rivers State, each local government chairman is to get a 20 million naira grant from the state government to destroy illegal refinery sites that have been identified so far in the 23 local government areas. Governor Nyesom Wike made this pledge during a meeting with local government chairmen, the Commissioner of Police in the state, and the Commandant of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps. It is the second meeting to be held in 5 days as the government pushes harder to end the illegal oil refining activities in Rivers State.
Some days after convening a meeting with heads of security and local government chairman, where he issued a 48-hour ultimatum for the identification of illegal refining sites across Rivers State. Governor Nyesom Wike is this time meeting with the 23 local government council bosses, the State Commissioner of Police and Commandant, Nigeria Security, and Civil Defense Corps. There's been intense search and identification of the sites after the directive, and this gathering is to review the progress made so far and set agenda for the next line of action, even as the governor receives classified files on the illegal activities compiled by the council bosses. He then announces an offer of 20 million naira to the chairman from the state coffers for the destruction of identified illegal refining sites in line with environmental safety protocols.
Go and clear it so they know that we are serious. Those of you who are from the Riverine area, I don't want to hear it is creek. That's what we call swamp boogie, is it not? Carry the swamp boogie and I must see it. Carry the swamp boogie, go and clear all those areas. After the state government of you at least 20 million now for a start to hire the equipment. But that does not mean you wait before you start. You must start today, tomorrow. And CP, please give them security.
Governor Wike also says he's not unmindful of the desperation by the criminals to induce security agents to stand down the operations and insists that his administration is determined to persecute both security personnel and public office holders found culpable.
No amount of propaganda, no amount of abuse, record the names of the people, their phone number, any policeman you know, or civil defense you know, or soldier you know, that are directly involved, put their names there.
Going forward, the governor is also asking the police to arrest all those declared wanted by his administration, some of whom are prominent businessmen.
In a related development, the fight against illegal bunkering activities and oil theft in Lagos and its environs appeared to be yielding results with the arrest of a number of suspects by a joint military team, Operation Awase. While handing over the arrested persons to NSCDC officials, the operations officer, 9 Brigade Ikeja, Major Timire Emuren, said the economic saboteurs, as part of the operations, used vehicles fabricated and fitted with large fuel tanks to transport stolen products. In other stories, at least 2 All Progressive Congress APC chieftains have been killed and another kidnapped when gunmen stormed the venue of the APC ward meeting in Enugu South local government area. According to eyewitnesses, members of the party in Ward 3, Obagu, Akunana, were having a reconciliation meeting when the gunmen, numbering over 7, stormed the venue. Some others who sustained gunshot injuries are currently receiving treatment in the hospital. APC chieftain and the Director General of the Voice of Nigeria, Osita Okechukwu, who confirms the incident to Channels Television, condemned the attack and called for peace among party members in the state. He also called on security agencies to unravel the incident and bring the perpetrators to book. Meanwhile, the State Police Command has ordered discreet investigation into the incident while launching a rescue operation for the person abducted. To education, this time in Adamawa State, the government is promising to ensure that schools affected by insurgency and other security challenges are adequately secured going forward. This is to enable students feel comfortable in conducive learning environments and for school activities to continue uninterrupted. The state government also believes this commitment is necessary to encourage parents allow their wards return to school.
In 3 northeast states most affected by insurgency, Borno, Yobe and Adamawa, about 300 educational facilities were either partially or completely destroyed. This forced many children, some of them orphaned, to drop out of school. In Adamawa State, the government says it's working to ensure that schools become safe again with the introduction of the Safe School Initiative, which will see more classrooms and perimeter fences constructed around schools, while extra security will be provided.
We deployed to about 16 schools, 18 schools within the state capital. We also deployed our men at the entrance to the main Yola, Jimeta, and then Yola town. That's the RRC squad with the fixed vehicle and patrols are all going on.
This school is two schools in one. We have junior section and senior section. Only one to be sent to the school is grossly inadequate. We very appear if 2-3 is not much for the school.
The Adamawa State Ministry of Education, in collaboration with the State Universal Basic Education Board, explained the steps being taken.
It has transmitted that we are less vulnerable to challenges from insurgents. Adamawa State has not have any issue of kidnapping in the state to now.
Just like the burglar proofs we put in our houses, it doesn't mean burglars will not come in, but it will delay. And within the day before they can break in and then do their havoc, you must have evacuated the place. It is better for them to carry the goods than to carry the human being. It's better for them to destroy the building than to harm a human soul.
For Governor Umaru Finsiri, education is a powerful tool without which no administration can achieve the drive required for development.
Education is a priority to me and my administration because I've understood that inclusive and quality education for all is the most powerful tool and indeed a proven drive for any meaningful development.
This initiative is also offering secondary school students in high-risk areas the opportunity to voluntarily transfer to safer schools in addition to deboarding of secondary schools.
That's all from Abuja. Back to you, Joma.
Thanks a lot, Linda. The Nigeria Governors Forum is currently holding its meeting in the Secretariat in Abuja. The meeting, which is the first for this year, is also the first in-person meeting that the governors are having in a while since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. In attendance are the governors of Ekiti State, Governor Kayode Fayemi, who is also the chairman of the forum, as well as the governors of Anambra, Ekiti, Kano, Nasarawa, Osun, and Oyo states. The agenda for the meeting is not known for now. As Nigeria strives to become the largest producer of rice in Africa, the Lagos state government is also positioning itself to play a major part in the effort. The government is currently constructing a rice mill factory at the Imota area of Ikorodu with a capacity of producing 2.8 million bags of rice annually. This report takes a look at the mill and the level of progress in delivering the project.
Lagos State has an estimated population of over 20 million residents, but food production in the state is a far cry from what it needs. Rice is one of the staple foods in the country, with its rich nutrients, vitamins and carbohydrate, much of which is consumed in Lagos. In line with the renewed rice revolution and efforts to ensure food security, the state is boosting production of various commodities, particularly rice, prompting the construction of the Imota rice mill in the Ikorodu area of the state, which is at 90% completion. The integrated mill is a 22-hectare facility consisting of 2 warehouses and 16 silos. The rice mill occupies 8.5% hectares of the total space. Much of the rice expected to be processed at the mill will come from farms like this one in Okegelu in the Lekki Local Council Development Area, where rice is planted on 500 hectares of land.
The worth of this investment in cash, approximately we should be talking of about 350 million naira of money. The belief is that there's no land to operate. This is one, proof that at least what we are looking for, our government is looking for in the northern part of the country, is right here in their pocket.
The Imota rice mill is expected to produce 32 tons per hour, and each of the 16 silos boasts of a capacity of 2,500 tons. It's said to be among the largest in sub-Saharan Africa and the world.
The project is about 92% completed.
considering if you look around you, most of what you see are indigenous workers. So everything from inception, that is from design to construction, installation, has all been done by a local workforce. The rice from here can be put side by side by any rice imported, and you get the same quality basically.
Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has been keeping tabs on the progress of work at the site. During his last visit, the governor said the project had been slowed down by the COVID-19 pandemic. He is, however, optimistic that the mill will be delivered in time.
You can see the 16 silos, which has a combined capacity of 40,000 metric tons. And you've seen the two lines. The first line, I'm told, is about 85% completed. The second is about 65, 70%. Right? In another month or so, they should be at about 98, 99%, completion.
When the mill is fully operational, it's expected to boost rice production, reduce the price of the commodity, as well as boost the GDP of Lagos State.
And over 800,000 smallholder rice farmers have benefited from the Unity Bank Agriculture Financing Scheme under the Anchor Borrowers Program, an initiative of the Central Bank of Nigeria. At the unveiling of rice pyramids in Abuja, the Executive Director, Risk Management and Compliance, Unity Bank PLC, Mr. Usman Abdulkadir, explains the bank's partnership with the Rice Farmers Association and says they're willing to reach more farmers.
The last wet season.
It's history in the making as the pyramids make a return. This time, it's the rice pyramid. 1 million bags of paddy rice stuck together to form these 15 pyramids. Unity Bank, a key player in the nation's agricultural financing, is part of this history. The bank has been a part of the Central Bank of Nigeria's Anchor Borrowers Program, which gave birth to the bags of rice that make up this pyramid.
Over 4 million people have been mainstreamed into the program since its inception. Mr. President mentioned about 5 million people, but if you look at the value chain covers many more people than that. Now, it's a clarion call, and it is what everyone should key into. We are happy to do that as a bank by providing funding and providing other ancillary services toward the success of the program.
In 2018, the bank financed about 273,000 smallholder rice farmers across 33 states of the Federation, including the FCT. In 2019, the bank supported an additional 146,810 smallholder rice farmers across the country. And in 2020, 221,450 smallholder rice farmers benefited from the bank's funding. As of March 2021, the bank has financed at least 190,000 smallholder farmers. The bank hopes to do more.
With all the things we have done, we still produce just about 10 million metric tons. While there are 3 cropping seasons in Vietnam, in Nigeria we only cultivate on the average 1 time. So there is a lot to be done, but this is a very good starting point, and we as a bank are happy to support this program.
The bank is encouraging beneficiaries of the intervention program to key into the federal government's goal of attaining food sufficiency and economic diversification.
Let's look at some business. There's Teniola Shobowale.
Thanks a lot, Ijeoma. The Lagos State government has acquired 2 10-car Talgo intra-city trains for the Red Line Rail project in the state. Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, who has completed the purchase deal in Milwaukee, United States, says the Red Line project, when completed, will be the first operational metro system in West Africa. According to the governor, the first phase of the Red Line will commence operation by the end of the year with a capacity of 500,000 passengers daily.
Train is not something you just go on the shelf and pick up, right? And so we've been pretty challenged knowing where we can get brand new trains like this. And so we're very, very lucky that our partnership and our conversations with some of our partners here started with Talgo about a month and a half ago. And because of Christmas and New Year, we couldn't, close it up. But I'm so excited that within the first month of the year, we've been able to take a trip, a very deserving one for that matter. And we've seen our beautiful white and red train. Coincidentally, the rail line is called a red line. It's called a red line. And so you can see they've given us the colors of. So we're just going to brand it and put up our seal there. And we're believing that this will be the beginning of bigger things that will happen with Talgo.
Global ratings agency Fitch has downgraded the credit rating of two Tier 1 Nigerian banks operating in Ghana. A statement by Fitch shows that both banks' sovereign ratings were lowered from B to B- with a stable outlook. The rating actions follows Fitch's downgrade of Ghana's long-term rating from B to B- on January the 14th, as the banks do not meet Fitch's criteria to be rated above the sovereign on a standalone basis. And now to the domestic equities market, where the Nigerian exchange has hit its highest level since January 2018. The all-share index jumped by 1.73% to cross the 45,000 basis points, largely driven by Airtel Africa and Seplat Energies. John Mekwa tells us more.
Well, thank you so much and welcome to the Stock Market Report. I'm happy to tell you that a major milestone was crossed today at the NGX. The all-share index crossed over to 45,000 level. The last time this happened was 4 years ago. Guess what? On the 19th of January. So today, 418 billion naira was added to the total market value, and the bull is dancing on the floor. So let's go straight to the drivers of this great phase, and attention moves to the oil and gas sector, which advanced over 2%. Seplat added 30 naira 10 kobo to its share price. Its share price will open at 690 naira, close at 720 naira 10 kobo. Imagine if you had Seplat in your portfolio. Well, moving on now, let's see the banking. Banking still holding its own today, still in the same range it was yesterday. And there seems to be a number of sell-offs on GTCO, FCMB, and Jay's Bank, as we notice a reduction in some of their share prices. Consumer couldn't make it to the green today. It was in the red. Maybe profit taken after 2 days of gains. Airtel is back in the light. It topped the gainers list, 10% up to close at 1,155 naira 50 kobo. Cornerstone and Linker Show also made it to that list. On the flip side, we have FTN Cocoa leading the losers list. Is shed 7.69% to close at 36 kobo. Well, the investors have spoken and they say the bull reigns. We're getting close to the end of the week. That's the Stock Market Report. I'm John Mekwa.
Thanks a lot, Ini. Now let's take a look at the closing numbers for other major equities around the world. And that's business news tonight. It's back to Ijeoma for the rest of the news at 10.
Thanks a lot, Teniola. A former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in Lagos State, Mr. Olashopo Shashore, is spending a second day with the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, where he's being grilled by operatives of the commission in Abuja. The senior advocate of Nigeria arrived at the headquarters of the EFCC yesterday afternoon to answer questions over his role in the process and industrial development matter. The federal government and PNID are locked in a legal dispute over a gas supply and processing agreement signed by PNID with the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, which the Nigerian government claims was a scam. The president has attended the second-term inauguration of the Gambian president Adama Barrow at the Independence Stadium in Banjul. At the event, President Muhammadu Buhari underlined the affinity between Nigeria and the Gambia and indicated the value Nigeria places on strong democratic governance, the rule of law, and promotion of fundamental human rights in West Africa. He says it's also a testament to the fact that the destinies of West Africans are tied and that Nigeria will continue to offer necessary support within ECOWAS to ensure that member states adhere to cherished democratic ideals. The British Prime Minister Boris Johnson says the country is returning to Plan A coronavirus restrictions and that working from home guidance ends today, while people should talk to their employers about their return to the workplace. From tomorrow, January the 20th, students will no longer have to wear face masks in classrooms, and from January 27th, there will be an end of mandatory face masks, an end of mandatory COVID passes in England, and the easing of care home restrictions. Here's Simon Pusey with more international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. New pictures have emerged from Tonga revealing the damage wreaked by tsunami waves triggered by an undersea volcano. They show the Pacific Islands blanketed in a layer of volcanic ash, while in coastal areas the waves have torn down trees and ripped buildings apart. Cars and roads in the capital have been coated in the film of ash, which has hampered relief planes from landing and delivering much-needed food and drinking water. Saturday's tsunami has also crippled communications. International phone links are said to have been restored, but a severed undersea cable may take weeks to fix, meaning Tonga remains largely cut off from the outside world, with little known about the scale of destruction. The US Secretary of State has called on Russia to take a diplomatic and peaceful path as fears mount of a new invasion of Ukraine.
Hello, nice to meet you.
So good to see you. How are you?
Thank you so much.
It comes as Antony Blinken met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kiev. The US Secretary of State said that finding a diplomatic resolution to the conflict was a clear preference, but that Moscow would face serious consequences if it chooses to renew aggression. An estimated 100,000 Russian troops have been deployed near Ukraine's borders. Russia has repeatedly denied planning to invade its neighbour. Mr. Blinken will meet his Russian counterpart in Geneva on Friday after talks with European allies in Berlin. The head of the World Health Organization has issued a warning to world leaders that the coronavirus pandemic is nowhere near over.
Omicron continues to sweep the world.
Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus cautioned against the assumption that the newly dominant Omicron variant is significantly milder and has eliminated the threat posed by the virus. The intervention comes as some European nations see record new case numbers. France reported nearly 500,000 new cases on Tuesday. Meanwhile, for the first time since the start of the pandemic, more than 100,000 new infections were recorded in Germany.
Make no mistake, Omicron is causing hospitalizations and deaths, and even the less severe cases are inundating health facilities. The virus is circulating far too intensely, with many still vulnerable.
The UK Prime Minister is under yet more pressure to resign following a difficult day of angry questioning in the House of Commons.
Can I start by warmly welcoming the honourable member for Bury South?
It began with the news that one of Boris Johnson's own MPs had defected to the Labour Party. Christian Wakeford, seen here in a Union Jack face mask, took his place on the Labour benches behind the leader Sir Keir Starmer. Things then got even worse for the Prime Minister as his former Brexit secretary said this.
But I expect my leaders to shoulder the responsibility for the actions they take. Yesterday, he did the opposite of that. So I'll remind him of a quotation altogether too familiar to him of Leo Amery to Neville Chamberlain. You have sat there too long for all the good you have done. In the name of God, go.
Ethiopians are mourning pioneering musician Nuho Gobana, who has died at the age of 74. He enjoyed a long career that saw him produce timeless classics, including many songs urging the Oromo people to find their strength and unite to demand change. The ethnic group, despite being Ethiopia's largest, was marginalized by successive Ethiopian rulers until Ahmed Abiy came to power a few years ago. Britney Spears says she will sue her sister Jamie Lynn if she continues to make derogatory statements about her while promoting a new book. In a cease and desist letter, Britney's lawyer claimed that the ill-timed memoir contains several misleading or outrageous claims. Although Britney has not read the book, she believes her sister has exploited her for monetary gain. She will not tolerate it nor stand it, the letter continued. Jamie Lynn has not yet commented on the letter. And finally, an incredibly rare baby calf in India has been born with 2 heads. The newborn creature, which was born at the farmer's house on Saturday, lives with its mother, but the heads are too heavy for it to stand up unaided. Due to how rare it is, the animal has become a huge local attraction in Gangai Kondan in southern India, with people queuing for hours to see it. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
Thanks a lot, Simon. Let's take a look at some sports now. Here's Ayotunde Balogun.
News for the 3-time African champions, the Super Eagles of Nigeria, as they beat Guinea-Bissau in Garoua to become the only side at the African Nations Cup to win all 3 group games. After making 8 changes to the side that beat Sudan to seal their last 16th place, Nigeria took time to warm up. Umar Sadiq opened the scoring shortly after the break, following a cross from striker partner Kelechi Iheanacho, while Captain William Trist Ekong sealed the win after tapping into an empty net after fine work from Moses Simon. Egypt edged past Sudan to finish second in Group D and qualify for the last 16 of the tournament. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has commended the Super Eagles of Nigeria for keeping hope alive in the ongoing African Nations Cup in Cameroon by winning all their group games and advancing to the second round of the tournament in grand style. The president urges the Austin Eguavoen-led team to maintain and even surpass the terrific form that made them leaders in the group stage, as Nigeria hopefully looks forward to a total of 7 emphatic wins in the competition. While the president trusts that the positive reputation of good sportsmanship from the traveling fans, sports writers and the football team have demonstrated in Cameroon, it will continue to liven up the importance of sports, particularly football, as an enabler of development, peace, tolerance and cooperation. Cote d'Ivoire coach Patrice Baumel says that the condition of the pitch at the Japoma Stadium in Douala is a disaster ahead of their clash with African champions, the Desert Foxes of Algeria. Both teams must win to hope to qualify for the round of 16.
I think this part of the pitch is a disaster. Everybody knows. So what I said before, the pitch is correct. I didn't say it's fantastic, it's correct. But day after day, games after games, of course, when you use the pitch, it's quite difficult to maintain in a good condition.
Defending champion Naomi Osaka is pleased that she found a way out of a second set blip to beat American Madison Brengle 6-love, 6-4 to reach the Australian Open third round earlier today, staying on course for a potential 4th round clash with top-ranked Ash Barty. The Japanese 24-year-old, who also won the Melbourne Park title in 2019, will next meet 60th ranked American Amanda Anisimova with a mouth-watering clash against Australian Barty potentially waiting in the round of 16. And that's a wrap in sports news. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. Back to you, Joe.
Thanks a lot, Ayotunde. And the main news again. The National Assembly today made a U-turn and rescinded its earlier decision on direct primaries. The lawmakers recommended indirect and direct primary options for political parties, just as the Senate added the option of consensus arrangement, while the House rejected the option. Also today, leader of the proscribed IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu, pleaded not guilty to charges of terrorism as another court in Umuahia ordered the federal government to pay him 1 billion naira over infringement of his fundamental human rights. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Thanks a lot for staying with us. I'm Ijoma Hunyato. Good night.